Sony, your 12 o'clock is here.
Thank you. Send them in.
Hey, good to see ya. I've been thinking, it's time. We gotta get to work on that second Uncharted game.
Hello?
Really, just give me a huge marketing push on the way up to launch. The whole build-up, we can just keep going and going and I mean, do you remember Golden Abyss? People love Golden Abyss.
Sorry, who are you?
You know the charcoal rubbings, the touchscreen stuff. It was awesome.
Who are you?
I'm Vita. I'm the PlayStation Vita.
Well, I've never heard of you.
What do you... You made me. What is that thing?
A paperweight?
I gotta say, I'm pretty shocked and appalled here, guy.
Listen, I'm a very busy company, so unless you
Seems pretty short-sighted of you, if you ask me, the PlayStation Vita. Not knowing who I am and all.
Unless you actually have something for me.
What do you mean, something for you? You need to promote me.
Security.
You can't just pretend I'm not. I am real. I am a real handheld. I'm the PlayStation Vita.
Jenkins?
Yes, Mr. Sony?
Send in VR.
The PlayStation Vita's story is one of tragedy and missed opportunity. Releasing in February of 2012 in North America and Europe and the December before in Japan, Sony's Vita promised a bright future for handheld gaming. Dual analog sticks, 2 shoulder buttons, front and rear touchscreens and cameras, 3G and Wi-Fi models, and an OLED screen sold the PlayStation faithful on a device that would surely be around for years to come and supported well into the future. Right?
Well, no. Not really. After just a handful of years promoting it, Sony were content to all but sweep the Vita under the rug, allowing the sales to dwindle until its discontinuation in March of 2019. And the sales figures tell the real story, with the Vita selling 16 million units, falling just shy of the PSP's 82 million units.
And that is a crying shame, because despite obscenely expensive proprietary memory cards and limited marketing and first-party support, the Vita was a brilliant little device. Powerful enough to run some impressive-looking flagship titles, and also backwards compatible with the digital PSP and PS1 classics available on Sony's storefront. Augmented reality titles were also possible courtesy of the camera and 6-axis motion capabilities, and were either utilized fantastically in games like Tearaway, or in far more gimmicky fashion with the apps bundled at launch that we won't be looking at today.
I still love and use my Vita, and even bought the Vita/PlayStation TV, basically a black box that allows you to play Vita games on your TV, and that's what we'll be using to play the launch games today. The European launch lineup, that is. It all ended in tragedy, but where did it start? Are you ready? Then let's do this.
We have to clean up this mess and find the rest of the team, man. We won't make it alone. Use the rifle to deal with the A-droids.
Hooray! Finally, I'll be able to shoot these noobs.
Oh, this should be good.
Despite its vaguely religious-sounding title, Amen is actually a side-scrolling military-themed think-em-up. A puzzler, it's a puzzle game. A-Corp are responsible for providing the world's supply of robot soldiers known as A-droids. One evening, however, a motley group decides to dress in the unattended A-droid uniforms, and whoops, they broke a control panel and rogue droids have come after them. Naturally, their response is to rig the factory to explode, but they forgot both the fuel and the detonator. Idiots. Each stage tasks the player with powering up generators, using lifts to proceed, taking out enemies and hopping on an evac chopper to escape. While you do have a gun and grenades, all the A-droids move faster than you can, and progression solutions are overly esoteric, so it's not long before things devolve into a frustrating cycle of trial and error.
Mid-stage save points are available, but using them lowers your score, very much de-incentivizing usage and increasing exasperation.
It is brought to us by Bloober Team, however. With a track record this good, I'm sure they'll smash the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake. 68%, according to an average of reviews listed on Moby Games. Oh boy, I sure hope you like your metal screamy and your games repetitive. An action strategy title where you hurl goblin folk at giant demon enemies, Army Corps of Hell places you in the cloven-footed shoes of the King of Hell.
Apparently, you're seeking to reclaim your throne by taking down hordes of enemies, but the plot is truly paper thin.
The game struck me as a combination of Dynasty warriors and Overlord as you command your army of gobbos, firing them at beasties and deploying devastating salvo attacks for massive damage. 3 goblin classes can be unlocked and equipped, including soldiers, spearmen, and magi. Your appearance can be slightly altered, and new weapons can be crafted via alchemy, but it's all rather flipping boring, to be honest. You'll float from stage to stage, doing the same thing over and over again, maybe freeing some goblins in exchange for gems here, and certainly seeing major pop-in as you cross bone bridges there. Points must be awarded for the licensed metal soundtrack, which does lend an appropriate air to proceedings, and playing with 3 other people online might improve the experience, but surely won't alter it drastically. 57% on Metacritic, with Games Master UK calling it a mindless, repetitive trudge through a sea of ugly. Asphalt Injection would really like to be Burnout, but Burnout it is not.
Oh, I hope you're covered.
Career Mode is the main attraction where you'll earn stars to unlock different leagues and tournaments. By competing in these, you can purchase and upgrade vehicles, and you'll even earn sponsors that grant bonuses like percentage car stat increases and multiplied prize money.
The variety of vehicles on offer is impressive, but they all sort of drive the same?
I mean, I know they've got differing stats, but you won't need to make any adjustments for how you're playing the game. You'll fire around tracks as fast as you possibly can, earning bonus cash by driving well or dangerously, collecting boost tokens, and then using that boost to go so fast you literally cannot control your car. It does have a 3D garage you can walk around, which is a fun, if useless addition, but apart from some fun and varied tracks, this one did not go down well at all. 49%.
There goes the paint job.
Oh, shut up. Even within the fairly mainstream realms of Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat, I'm a filthy fighting game casual, desperately trying to provide insight on a topic I have no business being insightful about. But when we stray away from the big fighting games, I'm very much out of my depth. Enter BlazBlue Continuum Shift, a game which I am now going to talk about. Boasting additional features not seen in the base Continuum Shift version, Extend has an updated story mode, additional playable characters, more individual character stories, and further tweaks and enhancements.
Naturally, I'm rubbish at it, but I did enjoy what I saw of the story.
It's the year 2194. There's some kind of lab where they're trying to find out what lays beyond a gate. There's a cocoon where space-time is frozen. And of course, a giant space fireman who shoots something at Earth. Outstanding. Also, if anyone can explain this menu to me, I'd really appreciate it. What is it? Critics were, on the whole, very impressed with this portable outing. Many were delighted with just how similar the experience was to the home console version, as well as how much content was stuffed onto the cartridge. Extremely deep and refined, exclaimed Digital Chumps, with the review average settling on 83%. This game reminds me of Untold Legends. Remember that one? It was also a launch title and was also a Diablo clone, I think? It's not the same though. A remake of 2009 iOS title Dungeon Hunter, this do-over follows the tale of a prince who, devastated at his betrothed's passing, uses dark magic and rituals to bring her back. Unintentionally releasing darkness and monsties upon the land and then selfishly dying himself, it's decided that only he can undo the damage he's done and is then also brought back to life, but with the aim of saving the world. Because you play as the prince, character customization is severely limited, with hair and gender a lock from the get-go. You can choose between rogue, mage, and warrior classes, and naturally can equip weaponry and armor found in dungeons to change your aesthetic, but that's your lot.
The lack of customization is especially egregious when you add 4-player online co-op to the mix. You're all going to look quite similar.
Powers and skills are mapped to the face buttons, and you're followed by a fairy companion, but you'll be spending the majority of your time hacking, slashing, looting, solving simple puzzles, and handing in quests. Critics did not enjoy this one, with Dungeon Hunter Alliance achieving just 49% on Metacritic. And just change the hair color there. Perfect, she's perfect! This time around, Dynasty Warriors Next's campaign mode is set during the Han Dynasty and features a trio of bestest buds led by Liu Bei, who has risen up in the name of the people in the 2nd century. Before attacking a region, you can select a stratagem, essentially a card that gives a set buff for that battle. Making their way around the map, players deplete a base's defense to 0 to capture it before eventually assaulting the stronghold to win the day.
How do you do this? Well, I'm I'm glad you asked.
Because it's by hitting lots and lots of enemies with your ridiculous weapons and attacks.
We must stay focused on capturing their bases.
A summonable horse is on hand, and some of the Vita's features get to flex their muscles too. To enter Muso mode, you have to tap both sides of the screen and then follow up with a differing motion control for each character. This can vary from shaking the handheld to swiping around in various directions, and it's very silly, really. Additionally, the AI isn't all there, often running into one another, but they are bred to die, so I suppose you can't blame them for not caring. 67% on Metacritic, but hey, it's Dynasty Warriors on the go. Not bad. Side-scrolling puzzler Escape Plan claims to be based on a true story, and I absolutely 100% believe that. A series of black and white test chambers where cartoonishly over-the-top deaths await should you fail? Check. Players little and large, 2 characters capable of very different things? Check. Trapped in the laboratory of the evil Bakuki with no way of escape?
See? It's all grounded in reality when you think about it.
The levels themselves will only last as long as it takes for you to work out how to complete them, with some far more obtuse than others. While a few will have you tapping the screen to interact with a valve to disable a hazard before simply walking out the door, others are much more involved, requiring you to time screen presses and your character's movement to avoid deadly obstacles with little room for mistakes. It's very much a game of trial and error then, as I found myself frantically mashing every interesting looking item in the room in a desperate attempt to discover the way to progress. It does look great though, with the aforementioned monochrome graphical style really popping, and the mournful classical music and audience laughter track really adding a melancholy sense of flair.
Listen to me using words.
71% on Metacritic. Oh yeah, here we go, sports time! I've played a golf game before. If these aren't the most horrifying presets you've ever seen, then you're lying to me and to Jesus, how dare you! But I've never watched golf, so I'm going to give this everything I've got! There's just something about a colourful golf game that I find irresistible, and Hot Shots Golf, World Invitational, or just Everybody's Golf if you want to get European about this, absolutely scratches that itch.
Developer Clap Hands' long-running series was back, but how was I going to fare?
Yeah, I could be a pro.
Challenge mode is probably the closest thing to a career mode, as you play through courses and tournaments, earning points and using them to purchase additional characters, clubs, and balls. If you've played any kind of golf game before, you'll be right at home here. Adjusting for wind and the course sloping, you press X to begin your swing, X to confirm power, and then X again to lock in your accuracy. Probably shouldn't be playing while a mama bear and her cubs are on the course though, right? Oh no, never mind, she doesn't seem too fussed. He's getting a bit closer though. Oh right! It looks lovely on the Vita, and the simple yet challenging gameplay, colourful characters and courses, and easy breezy music, animations and sound effects all add up to one delightful 76% on Metacritic scoring portable golfing adventure. Oh yeah, here we go, sports time! I've never played an F1 game before, but I have watched F1. Even so, I'm going to give this everything I've got.
As a non-Formula 1 fan, I cannot say F1 2011 interested me in the slightest.
I did enjoy how in-depth the career mode was, what with you checking your laptop and replying to emails, you know, the fun stuff. But before you can take to the track for the Drivers' Championship, you must first prove yourself and attempt to get an offer to sign with a team. For a portable F1 game, it's presented really quite well, with licensed tracks, drivers, teams, and sponsors, and there's even the non-stop nattering in your ear from the team's engineer.
Buttons ahead of you.
Bloody hell, it's a sim though, isn't it? You can tune vehicle parts, including the tyres and the front camber, which is definitely part of a car I've heard of before today, and you have to actually drive properly, not like you're playing Mario Kart. A huge disconnect for me as I flew into corners at full speed. Fortunately, there are racing lines, and auto braking can be enabled to make things a bit easier, but judging by my irrefutable failing grade, I shouldn't be allowed near a car ever again. 66%, according to Metacritic. Oh yeah, here we go, sports time! I've played a football game before. Tax fraud aficionado Lionel Messi graces the front cover this time around, and I've also watched football. Even so, I'm going to give this everything I've got. Ladies and gentlemen, Biff Dingus. Dingus's diminutive dimensions aside, I was dead set on securing a glittering legacy for dear Biff, electing to play FIFA Football's career mode. And so, the legend of Dingus began in a pre-season friendly against Hoffenheim, in a match that nobody would be forgetting for a while. Just 5 minutes into his debut, Biff Dingus was on the score sheet.
Shots on, that's a brilliant goal.
At 11 minutes, he slotted home another goal, and a mere 25 minutes later, it was a hat-trick for Dingus.
Come on, Dingus! Come on, Dingus! Oh, Dingus, we love you! Dingus!
At half-time, the score was 4-0, and would you look at that, it's Dingus, Dingus, Dingus. 13 minutes into the second half, it's Tiny Dingus again! At 85 minutes, Dingus scores his 6th of the game with a full-time score of 10-0. Everyone is talking about Newcastle United legend Biff Dingus. For a portable port of FIFA 12, the game is surprisingly feature-complete and plays very similarly to the console version. Yeah, it's a bit stuttery in cutscenes, but it looks great and it has Biff Dingus in it.
A bit concerned AI Martin Tyler is about to break free of his programming, though.
They're passing the ball as though it's a computer game. It's amazing.
79% on Metacritic. I don't even know how to explain this one, so I'm just going to let you watch it for a bit.
Draw a face on this rare egg. Oh, you'll have your eyes.
Comprised of a number of surreal video games, here we have not only British WarioWare, but the worst way anyone can pronounce the name Frobisher.
Frobisher Says.
I do not like it at all. From fanning a woman on the train by tilting the Vita to smashing an egg and platforming as a flan, Frobisher Says is bizarre throwaway whimsy at its finest. As I was forcing the game to run on the Vita TV instead of the Vita itself, it was missing some necessary control inputs like the microphone and tilt functionality, which caused the game to crash in some truly fantastic places.
Frobisher Says. Cat.
I really did think it was part of the game at first.
Artist Richard Hogg was pivotal to the game's development, and the main reason I bring that up is because his Twitter username is Dick Hogg, and that's amazing. I just really want him to know that that's great stuff. Visually striking, hilarious, heartwarming, and most importantly, fun to play. We still can't believe that Frobisher Says is a free download, said the Sixth Axis in their 80% review, with the Metacritic average settling on 74%. Hustle Kings is a pool game where you play pool. It's a port of a PS3 game, but instead of using boring old buttons to control your ball hits, you must instead master the touchscreen. Now, seeing as I was playing with a controller and simulating the touchscreen elements, I found it all rather laborious, but it found some praise with critics, so it must have been pretty good if you were playing on an actual Vita. You position your cue with the thumbstick, drag it back to the desired level of power on the touchscreen, and then let loose to see how horribly you do. I was actually better at it than I thought I would be, however, winning a colossal 2k in prize money. Presumably you can then spend this on different balls, game modes and Vaseline-covered avatars, but with prices this high, it's going to be a while before I can unlock this guy and his fantastic mustache. Sorry, fella. A career mode and tons of other features are available, including various challenging trick shots, but even with the added help of viewing the trajectory of my ball ahead of time, I found the thumbstick just wasn't responsive enough to really fine-tune the accuracy. 75% according to Metacritic. From its colourful and engaging visuals alone, I've always been intrigued by Little Deviants. I was wrong to get my hopes up. A puzzle game at its core, the Little Deviants have crash-landed, and only by completing the 30 minigames will they be allowed to rebuild their spaceship and escape. You'll do this by using the rear touchpad to deform the world, causing your Deviant to roll around the various stages. There are patrolling enemy robots to avoid and electric fences to be mindful of, with power-ups including an EMP to wipe out said fences and pickups for health recovery. The main goal is to navigate your way to that level's key, collecting stars as you go before making your way to an exit. All of this naturally relies heavily on the precise controls, which are not. Once again, I'm simulating them via a thumbstick, which is far from ideal, but even so, I simply didn't have enough power over my inputs to feel remotely in control. I'd smash into enemies I wanted to avoid, directly collide with electric fences, and often rolled in the wrong direction entirely. 57% on Metacritic, so I'm not the only one who wasn't a fan, honest. Luminous Electronic Symphony is a Tetris-style puzzler where you place blocks on a grid. Match a 2x2 set of colours, and then when the so-called timeline sweeps across, the squares will be removed and you will earn points. The game is over when your stack of blocks reaches the top of the screen, and that's your lot. Sounds quite simple, really, doesn't it? Well, think again, as Luminous's secret weapon is its music and presentation. A long-running series of puzzle titles, this version's appeal is no different, with its mesmerising combination of colours and patterns reacting to both
your actions and the beat of the techno soundtrack. It's the kind of game I could see myself playing on the bus or train and then completely missing my stop because I was so engrossed.
I am not good at puzzle games. In fact, the description of this one alone practically made me break out in a rash, but there's something just so intangible and appealing about Lumines that I can't quite put my finger on.
It's one of those zen games you can lose yourself in, and quite frankly, I think we're long overdue for another one. Escapism comes in many forms after all. 83% on Metacritic. Alrighty, here we go. Why does this game exist?
Anyone?
Despite the King of Pop having passed away 2 years prior to Michael Jackson The Experience HD's release, and despite Carly Rae Jepsen being the true King of Pop, MJ hee-heed and moonwalked his way into the Vita's launch slate nonetheless. The game sees you play through 16 of his most famous songs, using the touchpad to flick, tap, and trace corresponding shapes to pull off signature moves. And even more scary, CG Michael can be seen reenacting clips from the relevant music videos to break up proceedings, but it's all a bit unsettling, really. During dance sessions, you'll periodically be allowed to freestyle your moves, and this is where I discovered that you could just make him spin on the spot really, really fast. Look at him go. Amazing. A score is awarded based on the quality of your dancing, and digital figures can be unlocked and gawped at should you so wish. So it's one for the fans then, I assume? It controls fine for a touch-controlled dancing title, but with a Metacritic average of 57%, reviewers unanimously pointed out that there just isn't enough here for anyone but the most rabid of Mr. Jackson's following. Little Big Planets, play, create, share fundamentals but with kart racing now as we take a look at Mod Nation Racer's Road Trip. A port of the PS3 original, a vast selection of tools are at your disposal to customize your racer, tweak your kart, and even create entire tracks from scratch. These can then be shared online with other players around the world, although with the servers now off, those players are nowhere to be found these days. Most impressive to me was the track creation. First choosing a base like jungle or seaside, you then trace a track shape on the touchscreen. Players can manually deform the terrain to create lakes or mountains, apply cosmetic touches like trees, crash barriers, and buildings, and litter the course with power-ups, hazards, and speed boosts. A shortcut is available via the auto-populate option, and you can hop into a test drive anytime you like. Unfortunately, the racing itself is a bit unremarkable, and outside the positives of a more traditional career mode, the AI struggled at times to navigate the tracks, and I experienced significant slowdown and a fair amount of pop-in. An ambitious and in places extremely remarkable handheld creation tool, Mod Nation Racer's Road Trip received a Metacritic average of 62%.
The MotorStorm games on PS3 are amongst my favourite racing games ever.
They were loud, brash, and really silly fun, but with MotorStorm RC, however, developer Evolution took a different tact, a top-down Micro Machines style racer, and it completely broke my brain.
I was always rubbish at the Micro Machines games on PS1 because I just can't wrap my head around steering based on where the car is facing when the camera is static.
There is an alternate control scheme, but I was just as rubbish at that. My kingdom for a camera behind the car is what I wrote in my notes, but I fully appreciate I'm very much on my own in disliking this approach to racing games, and MotorStorm RC brought home a respectable 78% on Metacritic. In terms of progression, the title is set out very familiarly. You'll compete in differing events at so-called festivals, progressing through each set and unlocking more. Earned medals can be spent on new cars as well, and the social aspect was pushed highly, with friends' times shoved in your face after each race, encouraging you to have another try. While I'm sad I couldn't play MotorStorm RC with any competence whatsoever, I live for the day we get a proper follow-up on contemporary hardware. A port of Ninja Gaiden Sigma on PS3 itself, a port of 2004 Xbox title Ninja Gaiden Sigma Plus is the Vita edition of the bloody action-adventure hack-and-slash game. Players take on the role of Ryu Hayabusa, the so-called Super Ninja, not what I'm playing as him, he isn't, as he embarks on a quest to retrieve the Dark Dragon Blade.
Renowned for its tough combat and almost Metroidvania-style navigation from a time when From Software was still mucking about with giant robots, Ninja Gaiden is not for the faint of heart.
As a hack-and-slash, however, you'll be mainly chopping loads and loads of enemies to pieces, platforming and trying not to get chopped to pieces yourself. You can block, dodge, throw projectiles, and traverse by wall running and wall jumping, and there's even a new hero mode for players who might otherwise bounce off the title entirely, you know.
For the sickly baby gamers among us.
I'm not one, I'm big and brave and good. Critics took issue with the lack of new additions and that Vita-specific motion controls had been shoehorned in, but were otherwise very impressed that Ryu's Adventure had been made entirely portable, with the Metacritic average landing on 72%. Come now, we all know what Plants vs. Zombies is, right? It's the game that took the world by storm over a decade ago and now nobody talks about. Do you remember?
You remember.
Using standard buttons or almost entirely controlling proceedings via the touchscreen, as it was with the incredibly popular smartphone version, you place various plants up and down your garden to defend your home from the onslaught of zombie menaces. Different plants have different abilities, including the ever-faithful pea shooter, the zombie-obliterating cherry bomb, and the sun-generating sunflower. You'll need to use collected sun to buy plants in the first place and adjust your approach on the fly as different types of zombies force their way through your hedges.
A Vita-exclusive feature where shaking the handheld to collect any sun or money laying around was also introduced, and it was entertaining and engaging enough that porting it to a handheld system with a touchscreen made total sense.
Critics, however, took issue with a price point more than 4 times that of the iPhone version, and Plants vs. Zombies for the PlayStation Vita ended up achieving the second lowest Metascore out of the 8 platforms it appeared on, with 77%. Bounce, squidge, and stretch your way to victory, boldly shouts Putty Squad, making everyone a bit uncomfortable in the process. The original Putty Squad was released for SNES in 1994, with an Amiga version eventually releasing 19 years later in 2013. Even so, a remake was developed and released shortly after for the PS4. Hang on.
Oh right, yeah, I got the scripts mixed up.
Okay, here we are. An identical version, but with touch controls, ended up coming to Vita, and this is that. Should it have had a physical release? I would argue no, much like the PS4 version. You control your blob/putty thing and can stretch between paths and interact with a number of objects on your mission to reach the end of the stage. Collectibles, power-ups, and upgrades such as fireable rockets and little pilotable rocket ships are available, but oh man, I just don't have much more to say about this one. It was apparently received rather well back in the day, but the few Vita reviews available online were unified in their so-so appraisal. 76% according to an average of reviews listed on Moby Games, and now I hope I never have to talk about this game again. Oh my god, just how bloody pretty is that there Rayman Origins? Oh. Up to this point in Raymond Mann's colourful career, I couldn't really bring myself to ever get into the series, but reimagined as a gorgeous side-scroller.
Yes, you know what, I would love some of that, actually.
Now, from what I can gather from the intro, the heroes snored so loudly and with such musical synchronicity that it upset a grumpy granny living somewhere below to such an extent that she unleashed a barrage of creatures and locked them all up. Is that it? Is that the reason we're left with no option but to attack everything with impunity and frolic through levels? Typical Karen behaviour, eh? Gameplay-wise, it's standard fare for the genre. Run to the right, jump, punch and kick enemies, collect knickknacks and discover little side areas with additional secret knickknacks. However, the real appeal is the game's presentation. It looks and runs fantastically on the Vita, a barrage of fast-paced Technicolor loveliness. And critics well and truly agreed. Boasting additional unlockable content with a handful of touchscreen-compatible moments, IGN awarded Rayman Origins a prestigious 9 out of 10 score, calling it a spectacular living painting that's as much fun to play as it is to look at. 88% on Metacritic. Finally, a launch title that utilizes the Vita's augmented reality capabilities.
Oh balls! It's crap.
Reality Fighters is a fighting game where you take a photo of your face with the front camera, paste it onto a customizable body, and then duke it out on a stage as captured via the back camera. As the Vita TV doesn't have a front camera or a back camera, I had to use my actual Vita and hold it in front of a third, more powerful camera, which is why the footage you're seeing is blurry and out of focus. You're welcome. Mr. Miyagi, that's literally him, by the way, from the Karate Kid, yes, him, is on hand to guide you through affairs, and lots of challenges are available with the promise of unlockable clothing and fighting styles should you do well. In fact, the game apparently boasts over 8 trillion combinations, which is completely unnecessary as the fighting itself is a bit naff and unremarkable, and so you're unlikely to stick around to experience even 100 combinations. There is surprising depth to the clothing options, however, with helmets and appropriate padding helping to limit damage to specific body parts. But when you're mashing buttons to make a rough approximation of yourself smash crates, the novelty wears thin quickly. Just 54% on Metacritic.
Ridge Racer! Remember that one?
We did it! I didn't think we'd hear from Kaz again, and yet here we bloody are.
It's a good day for sliding sideways, everyone!
And sliding sideways you most certainly will be in Ridge Racer for the Vita. Racing-wise, the game plays exactly as you would imagine, with high speeds, big drifts, and even higher speeds thanks to nitrous earned from big drifts. It looks great too, and I can't say for certain, despite having played numerous Ridge Racer games in this series, but there seems to be a number of returning tracks from past titles. Unfortunately, drifting can be a little tricky to pull off, with you essentially having to stop accelerating and hold full tilt in a direction to start going, instead of having, I don't know, a dedicated button, maybe? And crash barriers might as well be made of Velcro for how much they insist on clinging to you, but at least the AI is beatable, right?
Oh wait, no they bloody aren't, because Ridge Racer for the Vita ditched a traditional single-player or campaign mode in favour of online team-based events where you earn points for your selected team or something.
This perceived lack of content was the focal point of critics' frustrations, and they ripped poor Ridge Racer apart. A 44% average, according to Metacritic. Ouch. Welcome everyone to the land of Utakata, where...
The House of Akame's invasion has failed.
Hang on.
The armed uprising of the Amrita sect, a thing of the past.
Slow down, please.
Kazuma
You're throwing...
Hisahide, Ichijo's vassals, the House
You're throwing
of
a million nouns
Lady
at me
Sadame.
here. I have
I
no
will
idea.
not
What's
let
going on? Please
Ichijo
slow down. I don't
Nobuteru have
understand.
Utakata.
An uprising means that war is threatening the area, and it's up to you to save the day, or the world. I'm not sure.
Everything about Shinobido 2 Revenge of Zen's presentation is a bit, well, naff, really, with melodramatic, cringy voice acting to boot.
Life is like a pedal, blowing in the wind.
Oh my god, did she just explode? Well, I suppose it's up to Zen to get his revenge. Oh my god, that's the name of the game, isn't it? Predominantly an action title, there's a big focus on stealth and taking out enemies as efficiently as possible, or however you would describe this as going.
What's that sound?
The overall aim is to lower the military might of the man you're getting revenge on before taking him out, but that's only if you can get on board with the combat, which is, to put it kindly, uncooperative. You simply cannot play without lock-on, as Zen will just begin slashing in the direction he's facing and refuse to turn. Also, he looks like Hikaru Shida, right? 55% on Metacritic, with Hyper Magazine calling it a dud. Oh, come on, someone get the counter out of the blob, he could die in there. Smart As is, as narrator John Cleese accepted a payday to half-heartedly declare,
the best way to show your friends, neighbours, and every other mere mortal in the entire world that you are smarter than they are.
As such, it features daily puzzles, games, and challenges, all designed to get that grey matter working and probably make you feel like a bit of an idiot too. It's a lot like Dr. Kawashima's brain training then, with a star rating at the end of a session indicating just how incapable of basic mathematics you are, or perhaps more accurately, just how incapable of drawing the number 4 without removing your finger from the touchscreen you are. The games come in all shapes and sizes, from simple arithmetic to dragging wires between certain points without crossing and filling in the missing letters from words.
It's inoffensive enough, but even with Mr. Cleese's star power, I just don't know how likely it is you'd be checking in every day to see all of the games on offer.
Although reviewers enjoyed the available games, most critics took issue with the price of Smart As, and the Metacritic average landed on 72%. I flippin' love Super Stardust, me.
A good twin-stick shooter can be hard to find, but as with their excellent work with PS4 launch game Resogun, Housemarque rarely misses.
And so here we are with Super Stardust Delta, a Vita outing for the series that started 5 years prior on PS3. Gameplay is simple enough, dodge incoming debris and projectiles on a given planet while shooting it all to bits. Asteroids and enemies come in ice and fire flavors, and you're equipped with weaponry to efficiently dispatch both. There's something incredibly satisfying about decimating a huge asteroid and unleashing the delicious upgrade treats within, which, depending on the weapon used, will upgrade that projectile to be even more powerful. Extra lives, bombs, and shields are also dropped, and you'll make use of all of them on your journey to the final stage to take out an intimidating bullet hell style boss.
Touchscreen controls and tilt functionality were included, but mercifully the Finnish devs saw fit to add traditional button schemes as well, and in my opinion, that's the best way to experience the game.
It's portable arcade perfection, as far as I'm concerned, and no other title, apart from maybe Lumines, managed to elicit the same glassy-eyed focus that Super Stardust Delta did. 82% on Metacritic. Another AR title now, but this time you can do crimes with it.
Not really, but also sort of.
Tag, or Teratga if you want to get wrong pronunciation about this, was a graffiti simulator and one that is sadly no longer playable in any fashion. This is as far as I could get. Essentially, you'd create a profile and, using the Vita's cameras, slap your tag on various buildings in real life. More tags means a higher level for you and unlocks within the tag store for more complex tags. The game encouraged you to go out into the world and track down other users' street art. If you were the same level or higher than that user, you could even tag over their tag and claim that spot as your own, and then get stabbed. Maybe. Probably. I can't say for sure because I haven't played it myself and they didn't include it in the marketing material, but there was likely a small chance you'd be stabbed.
It was a fun idea, but one that relied on you owning a 3G capable Vita, so for most, this game just didn't really work as intended.
Also, there's next to no coverage for this game that exists online, and so it will not count towards the total average review score, as I couldn't find any. Tales from Space Mutant Blob's Attack is a side-scrolling platform game where, as the titular mutant blob, you must consume various items to increase in size and get some measure of retribution against the evil humans who imprisoned you by taking over the world. It's a reasonable reaction. It's a surprisingly fun game, actually, with a great opening cutscene that sets the scene for this dystopian world.
Dystopian for blobs. Of course, it's just a regular world for us humans.
In most stages, an obstacle will be blocking your path, and so you must explore your immediate vicinity to gobble up the various knickknacks in your way until that gatekeeping obstacle surrenders to your blobby might. Hazards like lasers must be avoided, a slam ability will break through objects, and you can squeeze through little gaps and even utilize a rocket power to ostensibly float to your next objective. Jumping can be a little finicky, especially with some rather precise platforming, but that's about the only gripe, really. NZ Gamer relished the game's sense of humor, variety, challenge and polish, and it seems reviewers were practically united in their appreciation of this world-dominating blob simulator. An impressive 86% according to reviewers on Metacritic. And here we have it, everyone, a video game about darts, the greatest sport in the universe. And if you disagree, well, then I'll actually have to agree with you because I don't think darts is very exciting either.
Much like Hustle Kings, you can't fault Top Darts for including tons of features and game modes, many of which I simply did not understand.
I did throw a lot of darts at a board, yes, and in a darts game I was very aware that I'd likely spend most of my time doing that and that alone, but there was a small part of me, just a tiny part, that hoped playing the soccer mode might let me throw a dart at a goalkeeper. What I encountered instead was more darts, but with special rules. Legendary commentator Sid Waddle was on board to lend an air of realism to proceedings, but instead of elevating the experience, the scripted banter just fell flat.
Just look at the concentration in the players' eyes. Last time I saw anybody this focused, they were having their eyes tested.
However, Top Dart's real issue lies with its controls, which sees you press and hold on the touchscreen before dragging down and then swiping up to release your arrow.
At its best, this feels extremely clumsy and makes the game more a case of dumb luck than skill, and that's probably why it earned just 65% on Metacritic.
Touch My Katamari aimed to bring the long-running series' legendary weirdness to the PlayStation Vita, and I think it's fair to say that they did that in spades, yes.
The intro cutscene alone is utterly mad, featuring a lot of close-ups of the King of All Cosmos' crotch. Following the antics of his son, the Prince, the King feels as though the denizens of Earth don't respect him anymore, and this makes him very sad. So it's up to you to go from stage to stage, rolling up objects into a giant ball known in universe as a Katamari that will then be sent into space to become a new star. Abstract shapes, toys, household objects, human beings, nothing is safe from your devastating Katamari rampage. They do need reminding what the King of All Cosmos brings to the table after all, and also then what he clears from the table via giant ball and ejects into orbit. You can pinch and stretch your base Katamari shape to fit through gaps or increase the surface area, but with a limited number of fun levels to play through, this insane adventure is far too short.
Come on, you're gonna pay for that. Yeah, bring it. No, stop. No, stop bringing it. I gotta do my special move. It's all or nothing time. Stupid buttons, why won't you work? No. Stupid game.
Bonkers cutscenes aside, reviewers just couldn't look past the duration and aging mechanics, awarding it a 69% nice average on Metacritic. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 sees Capcom and Marvel's finest battle it out. With an astonishing 48 fighters in total from both rosters, you'll have plenty of beefy boys and girthy girls to choose from too, including Chris Redfield, Frank West and Ryu from Capcom, and Spider-Man, Doctor Doom and Rocket Raccoon repping Marvel. Damn, Wolverine, are you going to share that cake?
Just how did these two IP juggernauts come to collaborate/exchange blows, you ask?
Well, it's a classic tale of greed, of course. Both worlds' baddies decided they wanted more and teamed up to take over their respective worlds. However, in the process, they managed to upset Cosmic Entity and silly hat aficionado Galactus. Whoops. UMC3 feels great to play, and I say that as a fighting game noob. Choosing your team of 3, you can tag out at any time and press a button that calls in a teammate for a quick bonus attack. It looks fantastic too, and on the smaller OLED Vita screen, the cel-shaded visuals practically pop right out of it. Tied as the best reviewed version of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the game received an 80% Metacritic average, with Destructoid calling its portability a dream come true.
Without a doubt intended as the flagship Vita launch title, Uncharted Golden Abyss has since been relegated to somewhat obscurity.
Developed not by Naughty Dog but instead by Sony Bend, the game is a prequel that follows swashbuckling charm fiend Nathan Drake as he pillages his way towards the lost city of Kivera and shoots lots and lots of people in the face. For a portable title, the presentation is seriously impressive. Yes, it looks a bit crunchy when blown up to TV size, but the visuals, mocap and voice acting are all spot on.
Remember what Sully used to say, necessity breeds invention.
Trust me, you don't want to hear Sully talk about inventive breeding.
It's also surprisingly feature complete too. The levels aren't as detailed of course, but there's still plenty of shooting, platforming and treasure hunting to undertake. Accompanied predominantly by newcomer Marissa Chase, Golden Abyss weaves a tale of historical intrigue, betrayal and lots of shooting. Seriously, there are just so many bloody gunfights in these games.
You know what else there are lots of? Touchscreen and motion controls!
Now, I'd hazard a guess that Bend were compelled to include these at gunpoint, but in the first 30 minutes you'll rub charcoal rubbings, touch to swing on a rope, paint across climbable areas with your finger, tilt the Vita to lean out from a ledge, tilt the Vita to balance across a log, rotate and clean artifacts with your finger, and swipe to engage in hand-to-hand combat. It's a lot, and might be part of the reason why it's never been ported or included in subsequent collections. Which is a shame, because while few of these characters were ever mentioned again, Uncharted Golden Abyss deserves recognition for managing to make an Uncharted game work on a portable platform. I like it anyway. An 80% average on Metacritic. Oh yeah, here we go, sports time! I've played a tennis game before. Take that, you smug beige man, and you can piss off too, Mario, in your big high chair. And I've also watched tennis. Even so, I'm going to give this everything I've got. Buy a shirt, buy a shirt, buy a shirt, buy a shirt, buy a shirt. I'm a big supporter of accessible and arcadey tennis sims, and Virtua Tennis is the undisputed king as far as I'm concerned.
In fact, we haven't had a proper Virtua Tennis since this one, Virtua Tennis 4 World Tour Edition, so come on Sega, please, I want it.
The main focus of the game is the World Tour mode, in which you create a custom tennis player and aim to climb the ranks to superstardom. This plays out on a sort of board game style map, with different stops along your way depending on the amount of moves you take. Some of these will be for exhibition matches, some for rest and recuperation, PR opportunities and mini-games, all with the goal of reaching the next major tournament. It's a shame you can't choose to stop at every location on your globe-trotting adventure, but it does keep things moving along nicely. Whether you're serving to bowl or shepherding chicks to their mother, the mini-games are daft and varied too, allowing you to level up skills as you go. It's a series that I miss sorely, to be honest, but with a Metacritic average of 77%, I'm not convinced that's good enough to mean we'll see it again. And just like that, measuring the distance from leaf to ground gave us hover spacecraft racing. Look at these stupid slow vehicles with wheels. Blow raspberry. Oh, Wipeout 2048 is the 9th game in the series, and once again places you inside a high-velocity Pringles can to hurtle around corners at breakneck speed, firing missiles and projectiles as you do so. Over the course of the campaign, you'll unlock additional races and events, which vary from time trials to regular races, and further vehicles can also be earned as you go. It plays quite well too, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the vehicle handling was quite forgiving, especially with the increased input lag from my weird capture setup. Wipeout 2048 1948 looks fantastic in motion on the Vita, and as it's a prequel to the first game in the series, a lot of the track design is industrial and grimy, like they were trying this new style of racing for the first time. However, with shiny, grimy visuals, there comes the load times, and this is where a lot of reviewers found fault. Giant Bomb called the pre-race load times insane, with the Metacritic average settling on 79%. And that 79% brings the total average score of the PlayStation Vita's launch lineup to 70%.
Digital stores are being disabled and servers are being turned off. The role of video game preservationists, websites, and videos like these are only going to become more important as time passes and access to these games is more and more restricted. So please, if you enjoyed this video, like it, share it around, leave a comment, tell someone about it. I would really appreciate it. Why not subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and which of these was your favorite launch games? Let me know. I'd like to know that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!